Welcome to Off the Shelf with Renee and Barb. We are so excited to see you again. I especially am excited. I think it's been a month since I've been here. Barb and I are here with Off the Shelf through Step Into the Story to dissect this year's most popular books from both the writers and a reader's point of view. And we are loving just these conversations. This is episode 8 now? I think we we're hitting it. We're finding our stride. I'm your host, Renee Ryan. I'm author of over 24 books. I'm actually heading into the 30s, including The Widows of Champagne behind me. And that is my historical fiction novel that is out now. And so we have my cohort.
I'm Barb Wallace, and I am an award-winning romance and mystery author, and I'm making the pivot into historical fiction as well. So keep listening for news.
Yes, it's coming soon. And I also just finished my book that's coming out in October. It is sitting with my editor, so I do have another historical fiction coming. The name is, we do have a title, it's called The Secret Society of Salzburg. And I'll be sort of talking about it more as we get closer to the date, to its release date. But right now, we have another discussion.
Well, first, do never leave me again. Those of you who missed last week, or those of you who watched last week, know it was technically a disaster. We couldn't get the live feed going. We couldn't get the YouTube feed going. My phone rang in the middle of it. We couldn't find our guest for like 10 minutes. She was in the wrong room. I think I sent her to the wrong place. So Teresa was such a trooper. It turned out to be a great discussion, but
I know I was on deadline, and I ended up communicating with Teresa because she was my contact, and so she's trying to talk to me. And I kept thinking, wait a minute, you're asking the person in this entire operation that has the least tech experience, and you're the best at it. That's what's so funny.
We couldn't get the music to play, and then it was hysterical. The phone ringing was great. What it was is Donna and I were going to do it originally on Facebook Live because we couldn't get this broadcast going. So the alarm went off, alerting us that we hadn't gone on to Facebook Live yet. So my phone was ringing and her phone was ringing, and that's all you could hear going off in the middle of it. And my cat was jumping up and walking in front of the camera. He might do that again, but
hey, it just proves that, live television, I guess, live broadcast, you just never know what's going to happen. I actually really enjoyed that conversation. I love Teresa. I think Rockin' Bakken. I love her. I think she has such a great insight, and her voice is it's just butter. She has this gorgeous voice.
And she's so smart when it comes to breaking down a story. So.
Yep. Well, today we're switching our format up just a bit today, and at the end, we're going to be playing a game called We Love It. Do we love it or do we hate it? And it's going to be a really fast, rapid fire round, but you're going to have to wait a little bit before we get there, because before that, we are going to talk about should I talk about my deadline, where I was? Should I talk about that real fast?
Tell people where you were for a minute. Yeah, you've been gone for a month. People might want to.
Yes. Well, as anyone that writes a book on deadline for a publisher, I was on deadline. And what any of us know is it doesn't matter whether I had 6 months to write the book, doesn't matter whether I had 3 months, doesn't matter whether I had 4 weeks. I wrote most of the book in the last 3 weeks. And I was just crazy. The book was, it was a real departure for me because it's multiple points of view, multiple timelines. I was doing a lot of shifting, a lot of moving parts and trying to pull it all together. I had a big old whiteboard that had all the different scenes. And basically I was just getting up at 5 a.m. and I was writing until I passed out at night, sometime around 9 or 10. And the negative when you're working that way, and to be fair, I was writing for 6 months on this book. It's just a lot of it was research or episodic scenes where I knew a scene needed to be somewhere, but I didn't know how it was going to fit and all of that. So the last 4 weeks was that push to really pull all the squiggly lines into this. And that was really what I was.
This was the second or third draft that you spent 3 weeks.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm making it sound like I wrote this, 95,000 word book in 3 weeks. That's probably an embellishment because I really have been working on it for 6 months.
Writer embellishing.
Yeah, that's what we fiction writers do. But anyway, so I was really trying to pull all that together, and I think what happens is you can't get any other information in your head, or else you're going to explode. And the good part about that is when you are immersed in a story like that and you're working so closely, and I was going through the pages and working really hard, I would remember if I was on page 250, oh, that connects back to page 11. I better make sure that I've done that hint over there and start pulling all those threads through till the end where you've got this beautiful multi-braided story. And I think that when you take 6 months and you do a chapter at a time and you kind of limp your way through, I think a lot of those threads get lost, and you don't have. So when we get later, there's a positive and a negative when a deadline is looming, and I am going to consider this have been a positive. But I stared at the wall all day yesterday. I got it sent in the morning, and it was due yesterday. Well, it was due, I think, today. I think I got it. Ooh, I got it in a day early. Woohoo! But anyway, I spent the rest of the day staring at the wall. So now I'm really excited to talk about somebody else's book.
Okay, there we go. We should do we'll do a process show someday, just so people understand, because my system is pretty different than hers. And but
I would love that. And I think Donna has a completely different system as well.
Oh yeah. So we should do a process system at some point.
I would love that. Yep. And hello, Donna. We missed you, Donna. Wish you were here.
But today we're going to talk about City of Girls, which, right. We decided we're going to pick a book. For usually when we have a book, we both love it. This is one of the rare times where Renee loved it. And I know that one of the people on Step in the Story was talking about how much she loved it. I hated it. It took me months to get through it. I put it down. I blogged about twice. I blogged about how I couldn't finish it. And then I had blogged about finally finishing it. It was,
And I gobbled it up, and I'm not a bookseller, you are. I hand sell it to people. I'm like, oh, you got to read this book. And my daughter now is an avid reader, and she's in full-time school getting her nurse practitioner. She has 2 babies under 4. She's, married, working full-time. She works full-time as a nurse in a hematology oncology clinic. And now she's this avid reader, and she says it's because I gave her that book.
Oh, wow.
And that was the start. And now she can't stop reading now. And so I love it. Now let's talk about, do you have the book with you? Because
I do not, because I actually loaned it to a friend of mine who I did think would like it.
I did the same thing.
So I don't have, so we can't do the cover. Although it is a great premise. And that I think was what disappointed me. It opens with a woman telling another one. I think it's Vivian's the character's name, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And she's writing a letter saying, I will tell you how I knew your father. Let me tell you about what happened. And it was going to be a memoir, a kind of a fiction. There you go. And it's a gorgeous cover. Absolutely gorgeous cover. And it's a fictional memoir.
You know what? This cover, it tells you you're getting a women's fiction.
Yep.
It tells you exactly who the audience is, which would be you and me.
Oh.
You and I are the audience. It's a New York Times bestseller. Hello. Can I pick them or what?
Yeah.
And it's the feathers, and it says vibrant, sexy, and wise. People magazine said that. Elizabeth Gilbert is also, I think, if you don't know her, or you think you know that name, she wrote the Eat, Pray, and Love book.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's. And I was really excited because it was a fictional memoir, which is actually similar to what I'm working on. So I'm like, I want to hear how she did it. I had read Big Magic. I'm actually rereading Big Magic because I love
that too.
And I've listened to her TED Talk. She's a very smart writer. She knows so much about craft. So I was really excited to read the book. And I think that's one of the reasons I was incredibly disappointed with it. And I'll tell everyone right now, this is a spoiler, my pet peeve. The book's premise is she's writing a letter telling the woman how she met her father.
Mm-hmm.
The woman that she's writing about is not introduced to page 350. Okay, 300 pages of working up to, and then he's only in it for 40 pages at the most.
And he's in it but it's more reference to one scene that he was in.
Yeah.
And that's it.
It was,
And I actually like that because it wasn't about him, it was about her.
but it was about how she met him. She had to deliver that promise.
Okay.
She had, if you'd taken out that chapter, if you took out the opening and just wrote the first 250 or 300 pages where she's a young girl in New York and she makes some really selfish, stupid mistakes. And I'm cool. We talked about this with unlikable narrators, and I'm cool with them doing selfish, stupid mistakes. If that had been the book, I could have gone with that.
Picky, picky, picky.
But if she went on for another 200 pages of this woman's life, she crammed 2 years into 200 pages and then 50 years into 200 pages. And I was like, those are two different books.
You know what? You make a point. You make a point. I'm gonna concede the point. You're right. It did feel like two different books, and it did feel as though the way that I looked at it when I was reading it was the first part of the book is this coming of age story, much like, remember when we covered Shoulder Season with Sherry Taylor, and it was a very unlikable heroine because it was coming of age for this woman who had been somewhat sheltered, given all the right lip service for the right morality, all the right and wrong, but it never really took. And I felt the same way with this character. And so just makes some horrible, horrible decisions and questionable character decisions. When I say character, I don't mean fictional writing character. I mean like your personal character decision. Right. But I could go with that because that was that first part of the book. And that's sort of how, we all in our 20s make some horrible, horrible mistakes. I think they all talk about how wouldn't you love to go back to your teens or whatever, or, be young again. But 20s, I think, are so stressful. I mean, that it is just such a difficult time because you really are coming of age and you don't get to play the I'm a kid card anymore, you know? And so that part of the book. And then I really felt like the war, World War II, became sort of that centerpiece. And then everything else was after World War II. Because the beginning of the book is more her just moving to New York City. Again, she's been lip serviced of how to be a good moral person, but then she's not really, it hasn't really taken. She's very vain. I mean, you remember the scene where she's in the beginning of the book, she's on the train and she's falling in love with her image. I mean, it was very funny here how she could look at herself in the mirror, in the window, the reflection the whole way. She was very, so it was this person that you got a really good insight very early on, that she was not going to be a person that we were going to really like. And I liked the book because I kept waiting for that, like to see what mistake was she going to make next? Like, how is it going to unfold? And then she ended up with absolutely no supervision. She was just, her aunt was just trying to run this theater in Broadway, and it was in the 20s and 30s. Was it 30s? I think. Yeah, 30s. Yeah. Which I love. I'm falling in love with that time period, by the way. When we get back to later, I want to talk about that. And I think that's why I like the book, because I'm just so enamored with the 1930s movies, entertainment. It was sort of the end of vaudeville, the beginning of talkies. Silent films were leaving. They were having movies that talked. Broadway, there was stars. It was like the golden era of just all that kind of an actor and entertainment. Some of the greats, Barrymore, all the big greats, those are the ones that were getting their start, even Joan Crawford, Betty Davis. And so I loved that part of the book. So I think I was so enamored with, I just wanted to live in that world. And I feel like Elizabeth Gilbert immersed us in that world.
She did do, I will concede, she did a great job. And this is nothing against her ability to write. She's clearly a great writer, but I think I kept waiting for Vivian. There's this terrific scene in the first part. Vivian makes a horrible mistake. We don't want to spoil it, but she really does something to hurt a mentor of hers in probably
a lovely person,
selfish, vain ways you can. And the mentor tells her, you will never be spectacular. You may think you are, but you'll never be. And from that moment, I was waiting for her to then learn a lesson, either prove the woman wrong or, somehow grow up. Like that should have been her growing up stage. And I didn't see her grow up.
She took it on the chin, didn't she? She just basically like, oh, well, I guess I lost my good,
And her whole problem with the father, the guy that she's telling the story about, is that he insulted her. And he was wrong about her. I mean, well, he was right, but wrong. I mean, she was a very sexually free woman, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that was her whole point, a lot of her big point.
And I think in the 1930s, there was something wrong with that for most Americans.
Society.
But not in that world. That's the one thing, not in the 30s. In the 30s, there was especially in that world, the entertainment industry, I think sexuality was fluid. And there was a lot less judgment going on within the community.
The village was very accepting, and it was a very wild place where anything went. And so I think that his judgment was embarked her, but it was really more about hurting her feelings.
Right.
I think the aunt even says, like, oh, boo-hoo, you had your feelings hurt. Get over it.
Well, okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that, because I think you're right. She was having this sort of, what a mean person. I'm better than that. And I felt a lot like in Christina Clancy's book, that's kind of how Sherry Taylor went through the world, was sort of, people are mean to me and they don't even know me. But then the author, Elizabeth Gilbert in this case, doesn't make me want to know her. And so I can see where your point is that, wait a minute, this is not a character I can like. The reason that I find that so fascinating and loved it is it was one of the first books that I read when I left. It was the first book I read after deciding I was done with romance.
Okay.
Writing romance.
All right.
And so many women's fiction books have that sensibility of the main character has to be sympathetic. And oftentimes the definition of sympathetic, and especially from romance writers and in the romance world, is that sympathetic means 99.9% good, or even 90% good, or 50% bad, but good by the first 25, by the first quarter of the book, the first turning point. And so I'm reading this and I'm thinking, what a brave way to tell a story is that I couldn't stop reading. And it wasn't because I liked it.
Yeah, I could. But it was...
You could.
I could.
Well, but I get really good attention spans, Barb. But I think that was my point and it's kind of like, I was listening to I attended a Lisa Cron. Is it Lisa Cron?
Oh, yeah, she's great.
I attended a Lisa Cron workshop just 2 weeks ago. And she was talking about how, why is a book like, what was it? 50 Shades of Grey, when it is so poorly written, and yet it's sold over 1 billion copies. And even if only half of those people read it, I mean, none of us are getting that kind of audience as authors, and certainly not even Elizabeth Gilbert doesn't have that kind of audience. So what is it about books like that, or about, City of Girls, that I couldn't put down? It's not the writing, it's the story within the story. And I think how you were frustrated because you kept waiting for Vivian to redeem herself. I was engaged because I kept waiting for Vivian to redeem herself. So it's what made you hate the book was what made me love the book.
Yeah, I think it goes a lot to motivation. This is like an interesting discussion about motivation, because I think that looking at shoulder season versus City of Girls. So Christina, we're comparing you to Elizabeth Gilbert. And
rightfully so.
The reason I didn't have the same problem in shoulder season is it was very clear that while she was making some very bad, selfish decisions, it was painted very early on that she had no guidance and was very innocent and sheltered from the world and got thrown into a world. And for somehow I believed that she could get caught up in it. I didn't get that same feeling with Vivian, which was interesting because they're really the same. They were both lived a sheltered way, that they got put into a new world and caught up in the glamour and glitz of their new world. But I never got the feeling that Vivian was quite as innocent feeling as I did.
And you know what? I think why is that scene where she's staring at herself in the train window.
Cool.
And you're getting a sense that this is a very shallow person, because it makes me think that even if you did look at yourself in the mirror and you thought, hey, not bad, or hey, pretty good.
Yep.
That even to yourself, would you admit that? I mean, I think as women, and this book was written for women.
Yeah.
A man would think that, and a man would be fine about that, but that's not how, but a woman, of course, I don't have that whatever aura that anybody would look at me and do that, but I can't imagine falling in love with my image enough and then allowing myself to do that. Does that make sense?
What's interesting is in shoulder season, she's also opens with her looking at her image.
Yeah.
And she's wondering if the blue eyeshadow works, and does she look mature enough? Does she look sophisticated
to get the
enough?
Job, not because she's falling in love with herself.
Exactly. And I think that was the difference. That's what painted her as much more innocent, is, do I look sophisticated enough? And then she gets there and they tell her, well, you look a little trampy, and they clean her up. Like, she's like, oh, the magazine said blue eyeshadow plays up your eye color, so I put blue eyeshadow on. Like, it was clear that she didn't really get it, whereas Vivian was practicing her pout. And, some guy was checking out behind her, and she knew it, and she liked it.
Right.
And she was very vain. And I didn't have a problem, I don't have a problem with a vain character if you give them
something.
I always go back to Scarlett O'Hara, who did more unlikable things and was such a vain woman. Mm-hmm. But they gave her, Margaret gave her such good motivation that it was, she was saving the plantation. That very early on in the book, it's established. Her father tells her, Katie Scarlett, land is everything. Yeah,
and she loved the land, and she loved the plantation, and
so she does more
than losing her lifestyle. And because in some ways it's a very Scarlett story in this story and all of that.
And it's mirrored by she does good things without thinking about it.
Yeah.
She's nursing people, she's helping Mellie, she's doing all these things, even though she's a selfish person.
Right.
And I never saw that in Vivian.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I get that. So subtext. Okay. So let's just kind of take it a little bit deeper as authors, come on, readers, stay with us. I give a workshop, and it's been pretty successful in terms of helping writers understand subtext. And subtext is all, my big thing is, I always say the book is never about what the book is about. And a scene is never about what the scene is about. There should be all kinds of other stuff going on. The scene is the words in the scene, that's the train. But what's going on is what's inside the train, and that's the subtext. And what a lot of authors do that aren't aware of that is they put their own subtext in, like they put themselves into these characters, and they don't understand that they've got to pull themselves out. And I say this because there was this really popular romance author, and one of the greats in the greats at the late 90s, early 20s, big name. If I said her name, I'm not going to, because what I'm about to say is not a super nice thing. Everyone would know her, but she went through a divorce, and it was a nasty divorce. And that next book, the very first chapter, as I was reading it, I could not understand this heroine. She was so unlikable. She was so angry and so bitter. And even though she knew, it opens with her catching her husband cheating on her because there's a pair of black panties in his car, and that aren't hers.
Yep.
And the whole time I'm reading that, I'm like, she's motivated. She's she's everybody's worst nightmare. And yet I don't feel sorry for her. And I realized that this particular author was so bitter during her divorce. It probably wrote it at the worst part of it. That was coming through the character, and it was coming through, through word choice and, and things like that. And it makes me wonder when and then if you read enough of any author, you get to know, if you read more than 3 or 4 books about any author, you will know their worldview, because it's going to come out. And it makes me wonder about Elizabeth Gilbert's worldview. I know she's very fluid. Her sexuality is very fluid. I know she's a great writer, but it always makes me wonder, and I think you were going to bring this up, later, I think we had talked a little bit about this, is was this a book that she sort of needed to write? Was it a book that she was going through life's journey while she was writing it, and those were informing some of the chapters and the character, and all the way to maybe something was happening in the first part of the book in her life, and then in the second, and now we're getting into psychology, so I don't know, but this is what we do, and we don't.
I mean, I do know that I don't know the timeline and how it all works up. She does have, she has some very tragic things occur in the last few years, and that could very well have colored her writing.
I don't know if that somewhere kept her from really, because if the author doesn't connect to the character, can the reader connect to the character? And my response would be no. You know, it's like if you're crying while you're writing something, more than likely your reader will too. And not always the case, but you know, so going back to what, you know, I love Big Magic, and Big Magic.
I'm rereading it because I need to read it right now, and it's resonating so well with me right now. It's, if you're a writer and you're going through any kind of creative struggle,
anybody, I think anybody,
it's really hits home about how hard it is to live a creative life and what you need to do. Yes, I'm loving it.
But you were saying, I think that we had talked about this, or maybe you had written to me about how she had the idea of a book that it has its time when you're writing it, and then when you try and put it aside and then come back to it, you've lost that window.
Yep.
And maybe you weren't supposed to do that. And, you know, and here we are trying to analyze why the book wasn't resonating with Barb, you know, and for me, now that I've been away from writing and reading romance for 2 years, and I've just immersed myself into more books like City of Girls, I see a lot of what you're talking about. And I think now if I picked up the book and started reading it, I would have many of the same problems that you did. And originally it was just that, oh, good, we're going to have a character that's not typically sympathetic, and I can't wait to see how this character navigates her story.
Another interesting point that, but we should, before we play our game, but both you and the woman on, I forgot her name, I'm sorry, but we were on Step in the Story. You two both listened to it on audiobook, which shows you the power of a narrator, because you said that the narrator was fantastic and she brought Vivian to life. I read it. So
you're wondering her in your head.
Right. Whereas you were listening to her as a real breathing person. And I've done that. I've listened to audiobooks that, thinking back, like there was one by Gil Paul, who I loved the audiobook and I had a great time with it. But I'm like, I wonder if I would have liked it as well reading it. Or if it was because the narrator had such an engaging voice and did so well with the characters that I just fell in love with the characters. So it's, and you know, it's like a TV show. You can watch a TV show and fall in love with the character and then think back like, oh, it was really kind of a stupid movie, but I really liked how so-and-so was, I just liked him.
Yeah, I think, and you know what, that could also be playing a part, because although I think that, yes, I think that played a part, because when you have a great narrator, you know, a good voice actor who emphasizes words and dramatizes everything and she gave Vivian an amazing voice.
Yep.
And so she was likable immediately because the voice was likable, and the way that she portrayed her and inflections and things like that, that when you're reading, you don't know exactly what the inflections are and things like that. And maybe even, you know, the narrator, I wish I knew her name. I should have looked it up. Maybe some of the things that the way she portrayed Vivian wasn't even Elizabeth Gilbert's intent. We won't know, you know, we don't know.
Or it was, and the way I portrayed it in my head wasn't. I mean,
Now I will say, once I was done with it, I did not, now this happens to me a lot with audiobooks. Once I'm done with it and I loved it so much, I will go buy the book and then read it. Oh, wow. I had no desire to do that with this one. I thought, okay, done. So let's talk about the second half before we move on to our game.
Okay.
So the second half of the book, do you think that Vivian was more likable in the second half? Or do you just think that she was so not likable in the beginning for you that you couldn't engage in the second?
I couldn't. It went by so fast. She crammed so much.
She went to, I think, World War II. She was doing with the aunt, weren't they doing like the USO shows and things like that? And then she meets, then the husband or whatever, the father shows up, and then you're right. And that wasn't even the second half. I think it was like the last third.
In and of itself, that would have been such a fantastic book. It was two women raising a child, and you had this man who suffered horrific post-traumatic stress disorder, which he tells about, but you never really get to feel it because it's not about him.
Right? Great. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's, the second book would have been.
It would have been a fantastic second novel.
It's almost like the first half of the prologue.
Yeah. So it felt like two different books. I would have loved a story about these two women and how they were raising the child. And the boy was so unlike either of them. Because he was like afraid of puddles. And she was talking about that. She's like, my son is afraid of puddles. And, or something like, it was something really silly, like afraid of the ducks.
And knowing the life that Vivian had chosen, how horrifying that was to her, that her son is afraid of puddles.
Yeah. So, but she did learn to like mellow out about life at that second half. She became a
great seamstress. I mean, and designer. Yeah. So she had, who is it that says that, is it Robert McKee in his book Story? And he talks about how you really need to give your main character, or no, it's Michael Haig talks about how you have to give your main character a skill that makes them better than everyone else. They have to be heroic, at least in that. They have to be better than 99% of the people in the world. And Elizabeth Gilbert did give her that sewing seamstress skill that ultimately, became how she ends up meeting the daughter.
Yes. And I think that like I said, I think if we'd done two different books, I did like that she did go back and finish up that conflict where she had the actress mentor come back and cut her again, basically.
Yeah. Now, I will say my daughter didn't like the premise. She hated the premise. My daughter didn't like the idea, and I don't want to give away the book, the big thread. She didn't like that she was writing this letter about this one, how she met this woman's father. She didn't like how she met him, my daughter. She didn't like that part of the story.
No.
She didn't like that at all. She thought that made her immediately unlikable. But we had a long trip and we listened to the first half, and then she got, I gave her the book and then she couldn't stop reading it. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I think we both agree that if Elizabeth Gilbert had written two different books, we would have devoured both books. Because I think that even though Vivian was flawed and I was complaining about what a spoiled little brat she was, I think there was potential for her to really grow.
Like, what's the war? I mean, I think she could have used the war, she being Elizabeth Gilbert, could have used the war to redeem Vivian. And that could have been the end of the book.
Yeah. And I think that she could have, I never saw her grow up.
She re-meets the guy, meets him a second time after the war. That could have been a great ending of the book. Or when she's, have the first chapter is that terrible scene in the 1930s, and then we see him chapter 2. Now you've got the rest of that book. Yeah.
If she'd introduced him before, if we didn't wait 350 pages for a very short period of time, I was very disappointed.
So to our viewers, this is what authors do. We rewrite other people's books. It's so much easier than writing our own.
But you know what? We want to know who's read City of Girls. We want to know what you think. So we want you all to go out actually and buy Elizabeth's book or get it from the library, read it, and then tell us your opinion.
Yes, one of the whole point of this particular broadcast, and the reason that we don't really like to bring the author in, is we want to have an honest discussion about the book. And oftentimes, this time we didn't do this because of timing and trying to find the right person. We also bring in a true reader, not a writer. And we love to just dissect these books as readers and writers. But the ultimate goal is to show love to the author, because as you have heard, the love it or hate it, I loved it. I would read it again. Just because I found flaws in it doesn't mean I didn't love it. Barb had a different, experience, but you read it all the way through.
And I had no trouble repicking up Big Magic. So, some books don't hit you either. That doesn't mean, and that's one thing that she says in Big Magic. So some people like it, some people won't. And
Mm-hmm.
we picked this book because Elizabeth Gilbert's not going to care what we think. She's very self-assured in her own writing and her own skill. And she accepts that there's going to be people like me who didn't and people like Renee who did.
Mm-hmm. And as authors, and, you know, for our viewers, feel free to go look Renee Ryan up on Amazon and go look at my books and look at my reviews. And you will see someone say, this is the best book I've ever read. And you will find someone that say, this is absolutely a horrendous book. Was it even edited? Does the woman understand English language? And, you know, there's no grammar here, even though all of our books go through 5 rounds of editing, you know, whatever with that one. But the point is, and Susan Elizabeth Phillips said it well, you know, she said she had her very most favorite book she's ever written. And she was at this book signing and everyone's like, I love this book. I love this book. And someone came in, slammed it down and said, I hated it. I want my money back.
There you go. You can't please everyone.
Nope. All right. So
to that end, though, we're going to play Love It or Hate It.
Yes. We are going to play Love It or Hate It. And so it was my idea. I don't know how this is going to work. So, and when I say how it's going to work, I don't know how it's going to come off.
Okay.
Is that because Barb and I had such strong reactions to this book, you know, I loved it. She was not a fan. So, we thought we would do that with some other things and to see if we love it or hate it and if we can agree on anything. So Barb, do you want to do your first 5 and then I'll do 5 and then you do 5 and then I'll do 5 and then we'll wrap this up?
Okay. All right. So I did some food things. I did some book things. So we're going to just see them. We're going to go really rapid. Vampire romances.
Hate. Oh, that's the other thing. We don't get to say any in between. It's either got to be a love it or a hate it.
Right.
And you can say defend if you want, but
okay. Candy corn.
Hate.
Oh, how can you hate it?
Yuck. Because it's like it's gooey sugar. I mean, it's like not even sugar, it's gooey sugar. And I feel like it's all in my teeth and then yeah, no.
Being told a heroine is plucky. Not a plucky heroine, being told that she's plucky.
Hate. What is this? Are you in my head? I don't like that. And you know what? I actually don't like plucky or sassy heroines. I
hate when they tell you that she's sassy.
That's so romance. And no, there's a reason why I don't write romance anymore.
All right, we're going to keep with the theme. Maple syrup in your coffee.
Never had it.
I have never either. It is huge in Vermont. I'm wondering. So I'm trying to find out.
Okay, well, wait. Let's step back. Ask me coffee.
Coffee?
Hate it. I'm not a coffee drinker.
Who
Never
are
have
you?
been.
My son was going to Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay, I drink McDonald's iced coffee, which is basically milk with a little bit of coffee and vanilla. Like just a little hint. Like I'll eat coffee ice cream, but no. Okay.
All right. So what's that? 3? That was 5.
Okay.
Oh no, that was 4. Peppermint.
Love.
Hate.
How are we friends? I don't understand. How are we?
I don't even know you. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I don't even know you. That is so funny. You don't like peppermint?
No, I don't like mint.
You know what? My daughter, when she was little, didn't like mint. And whenever I would give her like a peppermint she'd be like, ooh, spicy.
Yeah, no, I just don't like mint.
It's spicy. She doesn't, she was young. I mean, 4 or 5. She thought it was spicy. So it's too strong.
They still serve like peppermint mocha coffee. And I'm like, no.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Eggnog.
Love.
All right. We can be friends. Okay. Red wine.
Like, but I can't drink it. Makes me sick.
Okay. So, well, that's not love it or hate it. So if it makes you sick, you have to hate it.
I guess I have to hate it because it gives me a headache.
Okay. All right. Diet soda.
Hate.
Really? I wish. I love it. I love it. I mean, and you know what? The thing about diet soda is I hated it. I grew up in the South. I was a Coca-Cola drinker. I would just drive through.
Real Coke or nothing, honey. Real Coke or nothing.
Yeah, Coca-Cola, real Coke. But I look back and I laugh, and I guess I had just turned like 31 or 32, and I'm 5'7". I was like the right huge amount of weight, like 128, and I think I'd hit 130. And I asked the doctor, how do I get these pounds off? And he said, well, stop drinking sugar soda. I said, well, what do I drink instead? He goes, diet. I would have never done diet if he hadn't have told me. And diet soda is so much worse for you than regular. So anyway.
It is, but it's like 300 calories a can. Yeah. I don't actually drink soda that much anymore. So
anyway. Okay. All right. Well, I was going to ask coffee. So I'm going to say it because you didn't ever answer. Coffee.
Coffee. I love coffee. And you know what I love? Eggnog lattes, which is coffee and eggnog.
You know what? I could probably get on board with that.
I am having a personal war with Starbucks because they canceled their eggnog latte. I had to find a place nearby that made them. The Muffin House in Midway.
All right. Yogurt.
Like.
Hate.
Oh, I like yogurt.
Okay. All right. So I think you had a couple of mine. So now I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to switch it up. One thing that's not food, and it's not books either. Marvel movies.
Don't like.
Okay.
We can't be friends again, right?
You know what? I will sit through one, but I will not be the first one in the movie theater.
There you go. If you drag me to one, I'll probably enjoy it. I watched Black Widow and didn't mind it. I watched
some I love, some I hate. So I think that, so I will qualify. It, you know, like if we went through the list, I could say love it, hate it, love it, hate it, love it, hate it, love it, hate it. But you know, like the big bubble of it, that's harder. So I probably should have done that. Maybe next time we'll do that. We'll go through the Marvel movies and see which ones you liked and which ones you didn't.
If it's got Chris Evans in it, I'll put up with it. Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast before we get to the next one, and it was it was Rob Lowe, and it was his Literally podcast, and he was interviewing who's the one, what's her name, that was in like all the 1980s movies, Molly Ringwald. And he's interviewing her. This is recent. This was like maybe a month ago, 2 months ago. And they were talking about Marvel movies, and neither one had been asked to be in a Marvel movie. And she said, I don't want to be in a Marvel movie. She said, I want the Marvel fitness workout. Because have you ever looked at everybody that is in a Marvel movie are ripped? I mean, they are in such good shape. So she wants the Marvel movie workout.
Oh, who doesn't want to look like Scarlett Johansson? I mean,
hey, really, if I got in a car accident, that's what, put me back together like Scarlett.
That's it.
Love you, Scarlett. Okay, so let's do the other hate it, love it, or hate it.
All right, I got books now. You ready?
Yep.
50 Shades.
Hate it.
I got about 10 pages in. So.
Okay.
Although I think I watched part of the movie, and I liked Dakota Johnson. I thought she was cute in it, but she's
cute.
Yeah.
She rescued it. So is Jamie Dornan. I mean, I think the actors rescued it.
So, they did. Jamie Dorman's adorable. He's in the movie with Kristen Wiig, and he's adorable in it.
Oh, he's adorable. Yep.
The Alchemist.
Loved it.
Loved it too.
Yeah, loved it.
It's on a list of books people lie about reading.
Is it really? It is such an easy read. I mean, I think I read it in a day. I mean, it's and for a debut, it just blows my mind.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. How about love triangles?
Hate, hate, hate. I think that's lazy writing. I think it is absolutely lazy plotting.
Yeah, same. That's our romance background. Unreliable narrators.
Hate.
Really, I like them. If they're done right.
Really? That's cool.
If they're done right. If they're done poorly, then the book sucks.
I think the first one, The Girl on the Train, was that the one?
Yeah.
No, not The Girl on the Train, the other one.
One of the best examples of unreliable. And I didn't read the book. I saw the movie, but it's a great example of it not being what she thinks it is. And she did a great job.
I thought that one was really well done. So if that's a typical unreliable narrator, then I would say Love.
Yeah, I mean, the book we did last week, After Alice Fell, she's somewhat of an unreliable narrator because she's being gaslit.
Yeah, so I've got that on my list of
Yeah,
books.
and it's very similar to Girl on a Train in that she's being gaslit by people. So she's starting to question her own sanity, and that was very well done. Another one is the book form of A Simple Favor.
Okay.
They changed the movie, but in the book form, the narrator's about halfway through, you realize she's unreliable and wackadoodle.
Yeah.
And then suddenly everything makes sense. So she did a good job. So I love them. Okay, my last one, champagne.
Love champagne. Okay, not Prosecco. There is such a difference. When I finished my book, and actually I finished it Sunday night, like around 7:30, where it was to the point where I'm like, okay, I can press send now. My husband and I, we bought a bunch of champagne when I was writing Widows of Champagne. And this one we got at the Total Wine, and it's one of their top rated, and it is from Champagne. And I'm telling you, there is a difference. Now, you can't get a decent champagne under $60, $70.
Yeah, probably.
So it's sweet, so I loved it. But then we had Prosecco like the week before, no comparison.
Right. So buy the expensive
really champagne. Or sparkling wine. It's not champagne. And so I would say, so that's my caveat.
We need to go try the champagne that she drank in Island Girl.
Yes. I would love that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a Dom Perignon fan, but I love Veuve Clicquot. So, I think Dom Perignon is overrated.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. So don't spend the $200 for a bottle.
Keep in mind, I grew up on Boone's Farm, so, I'm telling you, I grew up in Shoulders.
Honestly, it's very good. It's just that I think that the Veuve Clicquots, for the amount of money versus, that I think that if you really want a decent champagne and you're willing to spend the money, you don't need to go all the way there unless it's a super huge. I think all the Bollinger champagnes are good. So that's me. Okay.
All right. Last slide. Yep.
Okay. Prologues.
Lukewarm.
Okay.
Lukewarm. I think that a lot of prologues are wasted space.
I think the way a prologue works, and the only times I love it, I usually hate them. The only reason I love it is when it gives you information to make an unlikable character likable, and you need to see it in real time.
Right. Like
its backstory.
Lord of Scoundrels, Loretta Chase. If she didn't have that if she didn't have that prologue, you would hate the hero. By putting it in, you realized, okay, he was bullied.
Yeah, and you could never really, by the time you got to that information, it would be too late.
Right.
So when a prologue is used like that, I love it. Okay, so prologues. All right. Present tense.
Not really a fan.
Yeah, I don't love it. It's very jarring to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when an author is doing present tense, especially first person present tense, and the narrator is telling you something, then they go back into third person past tense, or first person past. I don't know. I just think it's very, very slippery. Very slippery. Okay. Going to first person.
I like first person.
Okay, so you love. Okay, perfect.
I love first person. I write for first person, so yes, I love first person.
Okay. Again, I would have to tell you some I hate, and some if I know if I can tell I'm reading first person by the time I'm in the 4th or 5th page and I'm still knowing it's first person, then I hate it. If I forget that I'm reading first person and I'm just reading a story, then I love it.
Okay. The book I'm working on is 5 points of view, all first person.
Okay. But see, a lot of first person is telling.
Yeah.
A lot of it is telling. It has to be more active for me to like it.
Yeah, he does.
So it's just basically somebody telling you a story instead of you living the story. So that's why I'm very leery about first person. Okay.
Yeah, it depends on the story. For example, again, going back to City of Girls, it's a memoir, so she's relaying memories, and that works. So,
and I thought it was more engaging though when we were actually in the memory versus her telling the memory.
Yeah.
Okay. Dual timelines.
Love.
And let me tell you, having just finished a book with dual timelines, not easy.
No.
Not easy. Okay. Let's see, I think that's 4. I've got one more. Okay. Because I'm living it or just lived it. Deadlines.
Hate them.
Oh, I love them.
No, I like deadlines because they keep me honest. I hate deadlines because usually it becomes crunch time and I'm living and breathing the book and it's not fun. I'm too old to be pulling all-nighters, and I have. And so I hate them. I love them in that having a deadline means I have a point to the story. It makes me feel less dilettantish.
Yeah, I can say for real, I love deadlines because they make me get the book done.
Yep.
And I know there are other people that are counting on me that if I don't get it in time, then a lot of other people are affected. So that's a huge motivator for me.
It makes me feel professional because I'm writing it with a purpose. Someone wants this book.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the issues that I'm struggling with now is I have no deadline because I'm making a big pivot, and it is very hard to, I'm very good about getting up and writing every day, but it's still, there's a feeling to it. Like who are you writing for?
That's how Widows was. I can say that I was working on it while I was still writing romance and while I was on the board of directors of Romance Writers of America. And I probably had the first, 50 pages were really tight and the story was sort of figured out. And then I had another 50 to 70 pages that took me a year to write. And then once I got a contract, I wrote the book in 3 months.
Yeah.
So that's why I like deadlines. I think going indie, which is, a very huge possibility, becoming an independent author and not working for a publisher, I'm really going to have to figure that out because I love lists. I'm a list person.
I have huge admiration for indie authors who can pump them out on regular deadlines and make them. Huge admiration.
Oh, I know the trick, and then we're going to wrap this up. I know what the trick is. The trick is you do a lot of professional editing, and you get editors who are very sought after, and you get on their calendar, and there's your deadline. Because you miss that deadline, then you get pushed back 3 months. With that,
yeah, that's true. I lucked out because my editor had a soft spot for me when I was the indie series I did. The book was delayed for a whole bunch of personal reasons, so she had a soft spot for me. So I lucked out.
There you go. All right. So next up, do we want to talk about what we're going to be doing next up? I got the book.
Oh, the book's in my other room, but you have it. Yes.
So, 2 weeks from today on 12/14, Emily York is joining us. She is an influencer. She's a young mother. She's a nurse, and she does a lot of reviews. She's on Instagram. I'll be sharing more information on the Step Into the Story Facebook group. So please join us. Also follow us on YouTube because you can go back and look at all of our other episodes. But we're going to be reading Patty Callahan's, I'm sorry about that. There we go. Patty Callahan's Once Upon a Wardrobe. And it's got C.S. Lewis is kind of a secondary character in here. And it's about right after World War II in England. And it's about right when The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe came out. And so those are sort of the backdrops of the story. And that's all we're going to talk about now because we're going to really dig into this book in 2 weeks. So join us.
Excited to read it. I just pulled it up. It's very, very excited to read it.
It's very good. I can say this.
Great reviews, huge buzz.
And that's what this is. We want buzzworthy books. Everybody go out and read it so that you can join us in 2 weeks. We are actually going to have an evening episode because Emily works full time during the day. So we are going to be doing a 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on the 14th of December. We'll be putting all of the information and the links out there. So thank you for being with us, Barb. I still love you. Even though you hated most of the things that I love, I still love you.
Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And I can't find my cursor. Where'd it go? Boom.